Here we go. Welcome to the Sasquatch Outpost podcast, Halloween special edition. And I've got my co-host for the evening, Jason Frank.
Elmer Fudd.
Sorry. Elmer Fudd.
Oh, wascally wabbits.
And behind me, let me grab this other camera. I'm going to swap cameras angles for a second here. Just give me a second. Move this up.
Camera, huh?
Sorry about this. There we go. Okay, we're going to switch cameras. These are two of my guests. This is Jason's wife, Liz, and Wayne Wasika. And I'm going to pick this up and show you guys what's behind me here, if I can do this. So we got the boss. I don't know if you can see Junior back there. He's got a Frankenstein mask on.
It's way down there.
Way back there. And the boss has got a wizard hat. So he decided he would get into the festivities here and wave your arm. Let's make him move. The other arm. Down a bit.
Oh, wait. There we go. There. I'm picking his nose.
You just got to wave your hand over to your left.
That way there.
Down. There we go.
Oh, I got you. Got you.
There he is, the man of the hour. He's kind of dark. I don't know if you can see his wizard hat, but
He's hanging out.
he's hanging out. So here we are in the Sasquatch Outpost. Let me get this. And we have another guest who's about to walk in. And I will have introduce her in a second. Okay, let me get back to our other camera. So, as I said, this is the Halloween special. And hey, be quiet. We're trying to do our podcast. We got some spooky stories for you. Oh, hold on a second here. One more switch. Let me show you who just walked in. Go ahead and have a seat. Looks like Sasquatch came to join us. And Sasquatch is, I didn't know Sasquatch had a dog.
Oh boy.
That is a great outfit.
That is awesome.
That is a great outfit. Awesome. Well, I think you win the prize for the best outfit present. I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
A lot of fun.
we've got some spooky Bigfoot stories for you this evening. And Daphne, you can turn off the boss now. And he's
fired up.
see, if I lean in towards you, we can see that jack-o'-lantern. If we lean apart, we can see that jack-o'-lantern.
Kinda
Those
in the
are
middle.
real candles inside those jack-o'-lanterns. So if you see this burst of flame behind us,
It's Jim.
we're all gonna run, and the podcast is over. And this is my Western outfit I had a little video I made of me cracking a whip, and of course, I couldn't get it to load. So we're gonna have to take my word for it.
There you go. It was water. It was awesome.
Yeah. So this evening we've got Jason's got a story or two. I think we may pull Liz in, his wife, for a story, and I'm hoping we can get Lou in. I don't see him in the studio yet, so I'm going to.
He said he's standing by.
Okay, tell him he can log in and just watch until we're ready for him to get in.
All right, we'll let him know.
Yeah, perfect.
Done.
So that is really a cat dressed as a poodle. There you go. The cat is in a perfect costume.
Oh, he's like really digging it. Like this is like
that really looks like a dog. It's amazing. And we got some giveaways tonight, and let's do. We got some swag, and I got this picture here. Let me show you guys. I created this with AI. So this is a Sasquatch wizard that I'm going to give away, and I'll mail it to you. If you win this evening, if you win one of these prizes, Tammy, just put up our banner with our address, if you can find it there, and we'll have you send your email or send your there you go. Send your mailing address to that address if you win. All right. So let's go for the first question. What do we got here? Some of these are not easy.
Yeah, some of them are Halloween, some are Sasquatch questions. So number one, what is America's favorite Halloween candy?
Ooh, I don't even know that. So first, Tammy, if you know the answer, the first one to get the right answer.
We just shout our answer.
Yeah.
You guys can't, I'm afraid.
It's certainly not.
We'll give you another licorice. Prize for being here.
Black licorice is nasty. Nobody likes that.
Let's see. Is anybody? Okay. Well,
what you got there?
I gotta see it here. Candy corn is not the right answer.
Nope.
Reese's.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. So John, you got it. It's Reese's.
Yep. Peanut butter cups.
Reese's peanut butter cups is the number one Halloween candy.
All right. Ready for number two?
Let's do number two, and then we'll do some a little bit later.
Sure. Yeah, we can.
And this is for the so the first gift.
Keychain.
So John, you can have a keychain or you can have the photo. You pick.
There you go.
I thought we turned him off.
He's putting in his 2 cents.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Like, wrong answer.
That
wrong
doesn't
answer.
even look like me.
No. What do you think? He's like,
I don't even have a car.
So. I don't think so.
So. All right.
I think he's off, but there's enough air in the compressor to keep him going.
You're talking about me or him?
Yeah. No. Keep your air in your compressor, please.
I'm off.
So, John, you can do the photo or the keychain. Photo, please. Okay, you got it. So, second question.
What is the original name for candy corn?
Original name for candy corn.
No Google searches.
Yeah, no Googling.
This is on the honor system, so you have to ask your 4-year-old.
Let's see. Original name corn. I did not know that. I wouldn't have gotten that one.
Tooth decay.
Yeah. Dentist salary.
Diabetes.
None of those are correct.
Just an idea. I'm just floating it out there. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yum. This is my fave.
Crayons. Sorry, Debbie. Not crayons.
Pretty close, though.
Yeah, but it looks like crayons. Anybody? Wow, this is a tough one, too.
Anybody else? I know what's the
I'll
last
give you one.
question.
Anybody else? One last chance.
Oh,
No.
Chicken feed.
All right.
all right.
Chicken feed is the answer.
That's right.
Uh,
Okay, we'll get the rest of them.
Is
You
that
want to do them later?
Witch tooth. Okay. No,
Which
we'll do
tooth
those
is
later.
close, though. Not
So
bad.
John gets the Sasquatch wizard.
All right, cool.
Okay, so
He's still in on it.
that's all right. He's all right. We're here for him anyway. And
Yeah.
Junior's just sitting there with his mask on, with his hand up, like, "Where's my candy? Where's my candy? Where's my Reese's cups?"
We'll hang the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, nobody got the second one right, did they? Oh, Debbie
Oh,
did.
we didn't see that.
Oh,
Congratulations.
sorry, Debbie.
We can't see from here.
I'm gonna get slapped for that
Excellent.
one
All right.
next time
cool.
I see Debbie.
Keychain is set aside for you.
So, yeah, that's funny. Okay, sorry, Debbie. I didn't realize that. Okay, so here's the first story. This is a story I heard a few years ago, and it takes place in Arkansas. It's a true story. The person that told the story is now an adult, and he was telling the story about when he was 9 years old, living in Arkansas. So his dad,
Perfect timing.
he's like, oh, I don't believe this story already.
I got a cousin in Arkansas.
He's got a lot of cousins in Arkansas. So his dad was a real estate agent, and they lived in rural Arkansas. So his dad would travel all over looking for customers, meeting with customers. So he got a call to, I don't know why he's going off this. There's nothing.
It's all the
setting
candy
off.
corn coursing through
I
his
know
veins.
it. Yeah. I should not have given him those Reese's
No.
candy before. So his dad had to go out to a client way out in the woods, and he asked his son, the person telling the story, if he wanted to go with him. So they drove way, way, way back in the woods. And they got to the house, isolated a house, nobody living nearby. And his dad went in, and this fella had a son about the same age, 9, 10 years old. So they were hanging out, just what two boys would do who don't know each other, 9 years old. So they were talking. And so after a little while, this little kid who lived at the house said, "Hey, you want to see Chewbacca Man?" And this other kid says, "Yeah, she looks like Chewbacca."
She does look like Chewbacca.
The other kid said, "What are you talking about, Chewbacca Man?" He goes, "Yeah, you want to see Chewbacca Man?" And this is in the 70s. Star Wars had just come out. So he said, "Yeah, let's go see Chewbacca Man." So they didn't tell their dads anything. So they just start walking off into the woods. He's following the other kid on this trail back in the woods. And they go way back in the woods. And they get to a bunch of deadfall that are blocking the trail. And this kid said he's looking around and he sees all these candy wrappers and all this junk food, Twinkie wrappers and stuff all over the ground. And he's like, "Why is all this here?" And he said to the other kid says to him, "Okay, now I'm going to have to call him." She's like, "Okay." So this other kid goes, "Here, Chewbacca Man, come here, Chewbacca Man." And this kid's thinking, okay, this is really stupid. And all of a sudden he starts hearing a sound coming through the woods on the other side of this deadfall. And he's thinking, what is that? And so it comes right up on the other side of the logs, and it's growling and carrying on and making noise and breaking branches. And the kid who lives there looks at this other kid and says, "I don't think Chewbacca Man likes you very much." And this other kid's like, "Man, I don't know what that is on the other side of those logs," but he said, I'm out of here. So he turns and starts to walk back to the house. Well, the Sasquatch came around and was shadowing him in the woods as he's walking back, and he can catch a glimpse of her every once in a while. So The other kid stays back there where the logs were. So he's walking towards the house. He gets to where he can see an opening and see the house, and he starts to run, and this Sasquatch starts running and moves to cut him off, and he makes it just into the house, and he runs in, and the two men are still talking, so he runs in and he stands by his dad, and he just doesn't say anything. About 5 minutes later, the other kid walks in, kind of gave him this funny look. He didn't say anything. The men finished their business and they got in the car and left. He said a couple of weeks later, they went back out there. His dad had to finish business with this guy, and they were gone. They had cleared out, left the house, packed everything up. And he said, looking back, I wondered if somehow that dad that day found out that his kid had been going off in the woods by himself, feeding this Sasquatch with junk food. And he said, to this day, he said, I get creeped out every time I think about that little kid by himself back in the woods, feeding Reese's Pieces and Twinkies to a Sasquatch.
Oh, no.
And he said they never went back after that. And so Sasquatch apparently likes Twinkies and Reese's and Butterfingers and who knows what else.
Serious sweet tooth.
Serious sweet tooth.
Yeah.
When you think about it,
They don't get it much.
they don't get sweet things very much. Maybe berries once in a while.
Yeah.
Hey, let's do one more giveaway here, and I'm going to have you tell a story.
Oh, sure.
And I don't see Lou here yet. He hasn't checked in. So,
Okay, so number 3. What were originally used as the first jack-o'-lanterns?
What was the first jack-o'-lantern made out of? Like, okay.
I think it was mac and cheese.
It was.
The Pilgrims brought it across.
So it's not a pumpkin, obviously. It's not a pumpkin.
Jack and Mac.
Let's see if anybody can guess what the first jack-o'-lantern.
We're having to look at the
was-
computer, so it's a
was
little
carved.
far away for us to read.
Gourd. Now,
Nope, close though.
close. Oranges, no.
Nope.
John said it again. Turnips. How
There
did you
you
know
go.
that, dude?
There you go.
How did you know? So let's see.
Your
what-
house must be decorated 24 hours
Yeah,
a
I know
day
it.
with
No,
Halloween
turnips.
stuff.
Are you sure you didn't Google that? I'm taking your word of honor here. That was really fast. If you didn't Google it, you're pretty smart. So
What? So we got
we get that
we
keychain.
got the
that-
keychain tool thing.
we got
or
this.
that-
I think you'd like this.
That
This
one?
is
Okay.
a brute Sasquatch
cool.
tool. Like
Man.
what would you use this for? This
So
is like
can
a
opener. It's got a screwdriver.
yeah,
it
it's
has
like a
little
multi-tool.
multi-tool.
So
keychain
there you go,
thing.
John.
There you
Multi-tool
go.
for you. The man with all the answers.
So that one's for John. Okay.
So I've known Jason for what, 10 years?
Yeah, it's
maybe
been a while. Yeah, been a while.
probably too long. And
Yeah, I know it's been awesome. I wouldn't take a minute off of it.
and we've had a lot of adventures, done a lot of
We have.
a lot of camping trips. So you told me a story. I wasn't with you at this particular trip, but you told me a story that happened to you. Where were you? What part of the?
It was down in south central Colorado, kind of down by Durango.
So tell us this story. This is one of the spookiest stories I've ever heard, and it happened to this guy. So
Yeah. So it is in my book. I've had interviews on this in the past.
and your book is
Harry's.
Harry's.
Sold right here in the museum.
Yep.
Also on my website, bigfoottherockies.com. Yeah, so I've got, I want to say this was in, probably getting the date wrong, July of 2008, I think.
Okay.
It was my first year of Bigfooting. I got into it by accident.
Well, I didn't realize it was that early on.
Yeah, it's been a
Okay.
while. It's been a while. Maybe even earlier than that. I'd have to look at the dates.
Okay.
But anyway, it was in July. I had gone on a trip, my first Bigfoot trip, which by accident, I didn't set out to be a Bigfoot researcher at all. And I ended up finding tracks while I was turkey hunting behind Pikes Peak. My wife was with me when I found those tracks. And I didn't know. But anyway, through a long story, I ended up hooking up with Dennis Foll and the Bigfoot BFRO.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my very first trip with them. And went on a BFRO trip and started having activity pretty much immediately. And I was out there by myself for 2 days. They were slapping my camper, smacking rocks behind the camper. They wouldn't let me sleep.
So you got there before everybody else.
This is a different location.
Different
this
location,
is before I
okay.
even went to this story. So
Okay.
anyway, long story short, it was pretty intense for about, I think I was there for 6 or 7 days. The last night was really, really intense. I won't get into the details of that either. That's a whole other story. But anyway, some other guys who friends of mine I'd met on that trip said, hey, you did pretty good. Would you like to go to a place that was more intense? Now, I'd heard them on that other trip. I'd heard them I actually had giant rocks thrown at us, pushing over trees. Had a rock thrown at me there last July, actually, this July, right in the middle of the day. But anyway, so we go to this different location. We were there, I want to say, for like 5 or 6 days. I can't remember how long it was. And there were, initially there were 4 of us. And then the group grew to like 8 or 10. And really, it's a very, very remote place. It's right at tree line, extremely high elevation. We had some really nasty weather. And I had a little 2-man backpacking tent that me and Liz had used for years, a couple of years. It was a couple of years old by then. And it had plastic vestibules in the windows. And
how high above you was the tent?
The tent was like this tall.
So it was like maybe 3 feet tall.
Yeah, just a standard 2-person backpacking tent. I'd say maybe 4 or 5 feet across, with the vestibule maybe 6 feet across, and then your regular length maybe 6 or 7 feet.
What's
long.
a vestibule? Excuse my ignorance.
No, that's right. So it's like so your rain fly goes over the top, and that's the vestibule, and it had like these triangular shaped plastic windows to let the sun in. And we'd gotten some really bad hail, and the hail had blown my windows out on the second to last day. And so it was raining. We had some pretty nasty weather. And to keep the rain out, I had stretched my old army poncho across the top to keep the rain out. And that's creepy because that's really, really what it sounded like.
I don't know why he hadn't gone off yet.
I don't know. But anyway, so we were there for several days. Not a whole lot had happened. We'd had one sighting. I caught a glimpse of what I thought was a young one running through the trees. But the last night, by that time, there was 8 or 10 of us in the camp. And, it was raining really hard. I built a lean-to out of a blue tarp like you get from Walmart for everybody for the dining area. And we had the lean-to set up and had a fire going. And I had made elk stew in a Dutch oven for everybody for dinner that night. And it was just pouring down rain. And we're trying to stay out of the rain. And we ate dinner. And before we have recordings of this somewhere, but before we even got to bed, it was probably around 9 o'clock at night. We hear this huge crash. And we found out later that this thing had carried, I believe it was probably the one that I named Grumpy. He's extremely aggressive. He had carried a boulder about the size of a dishwasher over to a 48-inch steel culvert and smashed the culvert. And there was no rock, no mountainside for that rock to have rolled down. He had to have carried it and then thrown it down. He was just showing how strong he was. But we didn't go looking for it. We just knew he was out there. We went to bed. It was still raining. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still new to this, I didn't know that Bigfoot had a language. I didn't know that they could talk. I didn't know any of this stuff. I'd heard their vocalizations, but I didn't know it was part of a language. And I'm laying in my tent. I had a bad back injury and stomach problems. I was pretty messed up. I had a lot of pain. So sleeping was a challenge, especially on the ground after about a week.
Yeah.
And about 2 a.m, I wake up and I hear this popping noise, and it was like, and it was maybe 30 feet away. I'm off to my right side, in between one of the guys was sleeping in the back of his truck underneath a camper shell, and the other guy was in a tent. And I thought, I caught you. You didn't fool me.
You figured they were making the noise?
Well, yeah, it was definitely not a natural noise. It was like a mouth popping, clicking noise. And immediately it was followed by another one that responded that went, and it was like this far from my left foot. It was standing right over me. He was right there. And I thought, oh my God, he's right on me. And you don't know how big he is. He's just standing there. And of course, I'm kind of freaking out. And ironically, part of my wife's costume tonight, she's wearing the handgun that I had that night on her hip. It doesn't have a cylinder in it. I took it out. Anyway, so I'm laying there, and I had promised I would never hurt one unless they were physically dragging me off. And I've stood to that. But man, did he come close that night. And, I was new to this. Anyway, I laid there. And so just for protection, I grabbed my gun. I wasn't going to use it. I just wanted to make sure he wasn't going to grab me and drag me off into the dark. And I laid there with my handgun on my stomach, just like this. And I don't know, probably 2.5 hours. I listened to them. It sounded like 8 or 10 of them were walking around the camp, and I could hear them talking, and they would click, click, click. And then once in a while, wah, 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 and then grunt like this thing behind us is doing. And you just kind of hear that. But mostly it was just pops and clicks for a couple hours. So now it's pushing, I don't know, probably 3:30, 4 in the morning. And the Dutch oven is still kind of spitting rain off and on. You can't really tell when it's raining or not, kind of hail and stuff falling off the trees. And I don't know, it's probably 4:45 in the morning. I hear this thing that it was 30 feet behind us. And between me and the fire pit where the Dutch oven was the lean-to in our firewood pile, which was, I know, yeah, about 30 feet away. And I hear this thing actually lift up the Dutch oven lid, and he smelled it a couple times, and then all of a sudden he got really mad, and he went raw, and he slammed the lid down on the Dutch oven, and he charged me. He covered that. I counted his footsteps. There was no mistake in that. He covered that 30 feet in like 3 footsteps and knocked over the wood pile. And I'm laying there, and he was making really aggressive noises, kind of like what this one is doing with the growling, but he's also kind of going and like mashing his teeth and grinding his teeth. And he walks up to the tent, and I've got my gun, and he's going raw, 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 raw. And he picked up the poncho that was blocking my window, and he stuck his fist through the broken window into the mesh of the tent, and his hand literally was right here. I mean, it was 16 inches from my face and probably that big, maybe bigger.
So he pushed in like this.
But he had a handful of the poncho, so it
Okay.
was more like this. And then he rolled his hand over, and he started doing this, and I could see like the dirt and grit underneath his fingernails. I mean, he was right there.
Someone's asking, do you just lay still or did you freak
Oh,
out?
I was trying not to pee my bed. I was terrified. I really was. And I'm like, I'm trying to keep it. I'm pretty highly trained in stressful situations, but I was like, holy moly, you're really pushing it, buddy. And so I'm laying there, and I could see it, and he was still doing that. And it was the grunting and the clicking was really unnerving. And he pulls his hand out, and I guess he got on like in a push-up position. It's a little tiny tent. The side of the tent is like right here. And he got up there, and he pushed his face in, and his face looked just like this one back here. Same shape, everything, maybe bigger than this one.
Huh.
But the face, he was like right next to my face, and he pushed in, and his face pushed in, and his nose was right here, and he was smelling me. I could see the nostrils through the side of the tent, and he's like smelling me, and he's going and I've got that pistol right here, and I'm thinking to myself, if I shoot him, the rest of them are going to kill all of us, and I'm going to blind myself with a powder burn from the cylinder because it's right in front of my face. And I'm just going through this, and in my mind, I'm screaming, "Don't make me do this! I promised I wouldn't do this."
And did you actually have it towards his head?
Yeah, it was that far from
wow.
his forehead. He was right here, and I'm freaking out, and I'm just trying to stay calm. I haven't moved. I haven't made any noise. And I'm trying not to breathe too much. And he's right there, and he's mashing. And then this is where it gets kind of supernatural and woo-woo and weird. I don't know if a guardian angel, I don't know what it was. But this voice that I trusted in my left ear, right plain as day, it was right here. And it says, he knows you're awake, kick your legs. And at the time, I didn't understand what that meant, but I trusted this voice. I just trusted this voice. And so I'm laying there, and so I'm like, okay, that's better than where we're going.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hurt him, and I knew it was just bad news. And so I kicked my legs, and they felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. I kicked them like 2 or 3 times back and forth. And by now the sun is coming up. It's like 5:15 in the morning. It's in July. So the sun's coming up over the mountain. I kick my legs, and immediately he just starts to diffuse, and he just goes, and he stands up, and by now the sun's coming up right behind him. And I see him coming up, And that's how I know how big he was, because there was a tree limb that stuck out and I could see the shadow of the tree limb, and he lined up with that. So that put him right at about 9 feet tall. And I don't know, 4 or 5 feet wide. And he stands up and he calmed down. And then he goes, he looks to his, would have been his left, which would have been towards my head. And he goes, ah, ah, ah. And like all of them lined right up next to him. Like they were just falling in, like in formation. They lined it up right up next to him. And then they walked down past my feet. And they walked around the left side of my tent, and they walked up to this saddle that was probably, I don't know, 35 yards maybe up from my tent, and kind of a saddle that overlooks we've been there many times. And I didn't know they did this either, but they started chirping. They chirped really, really loud. It made my ears hurt. And it was like, it sounded like birds chirping, but they were chattering like monkeys. And it was like, and it was like 8 or 10 of them all.
When they got up the hill.
Yeah. And by then it was full blown daylight and everybody's still sleeping. And I'm a nervous wreck. And I had a camcorder in my tent. And I thought, this is my chance to film them. And everybody told me that when they hear a zipper, they just run off. So I'm like, how am I going to get out all of this fast enough before they can hear the zippers? I got to go through like 3 of them to get out of the tent. So I put the camcorder in my sleeping bag so that it wouldn't make noise. I turn it on, and then I kind of sneak out of the sleeping bag, and they're still chirping like crazy. And I managed to unzip the mosquito thing from the tent, and then I didn't even undo the rain fly. I just dove out underneath it and came out, and by then they were all gone. And now I actually accidentally filmed all this because I was such a nervous wreck. I forgot to turn the camera off, and I'm walking around and waking everybody up. Like, you guys wake up. They were just here. Wake up. They were just here.
I'd love to see that.
And yeah, I've got it around somewhere. It's on one of those little micro cassette tapes. And so we ended up, I wake everybody up. We started looking around, and we found handprints next to my tent where they had crawled up. We found fingerprints on my truck. We found fingerprints on a couple of other vehicles. We found a couple of footprints. And then, unbeknownst to me, when we decided to leave, we were packing up, and I was folding up my tent and all my gear, and I realized that he had urinated on all of my stuff.
Gross.
I got urine all over my clothes. It was terrible. You can't wash the stuff out. And then I drove home, the long drive home, like having a nervous breakdown. And my wife was home. I don't know. I came home, I guess, with a melted brain. I don't know.
Well,
I had nightmares about that for a long time. It
bet.
was really intense.
Well, that's as close as anyone can get to being assaulted by a Sasquatch without actually having him touch you.
Which happened to me a few years ago.
Yeah, that did too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Someone asked, what advice do you have for someone who's solo camping?
Just remember that you're way down on the food chain there, and you're pretty much at their mercy. So behave. And if you do, like I said, I've had hundreds of encounters with them now. I honestly can't even remember all of them. They have to be something spectacular for me to even make note anymore. If you lay there and you're just peaceful and you just let them do their thing, and you can even talk nice to them once they get familiar with you. I've got a few that I can do that with, and they will they'll mumble and talk to you through the tent. Just have the mindset that you're there visiting and you want to be their friend. Just realize that they all have their own personalities. Some of them are pranksters and jokesters, and some of them, like Grumpy, he's very alpha and he'll get right in your face. I've had a couple of, in all my time of doing this, I've only pulled my gun on him 3 times, and twice was on him. So, but the second time he introduced me to his whole family. So, but it's been a long time since I've seen him. I hope he still remembers me. Because that was some hard-earned cred there, and that's in the book too. But I haven't been there for several years because it's so far away, and I'd rather just concentrate closer to home. And we have our own favorite group that I really enjoy interacting with.
John, yeah, I got your second comment. We're good. Lou is asking if we can send him a link. We did send him a link, didn't we?
I don't know.
Let me try it again.
But anyway, while he's doing that, I can tell you how about the drive home, which was a really strange thing. The drive home, here I packed up everything, had this totally terrifying, life-changing experience. And I'm driving home, and I get to Alamosa, and I stop for lunch, and it's on a Sunday noon. And I'm trying to call my wife and my grandmother and my parents, and I'm like, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. and I don't even know how to deal with it. I was in a complete state of shock, really, for quite a while. It took me a long time to deal with it, but it was a surreal experience for me to have all of that happen. And then I get to Alamosa, and I had to stop for lunch, and my hands were still shaking, and I smelled like Sasquatch urine because it was all over my shirt.
That's just gross, man.
Yeah, it was, but I'll eat anytime. And I go into the restaurant, and everybody's having their after church meal, and everyone's wearing their church clothes, and I'm sitting in the corner with Sasquatch urine on my shirt, and I'm like, I felt like I was in a mason jar. It was the weirdest feeling. And I just like my whole world had just flipped upside down, and I really wanted to just stand up and yell at everybody. I'm like, you don't know what lives real in those mountains. I'm like, that's really where it was. And then, coming home, and my wife had to put up with me, and I'm like, there's no going back from that. There was just no going back. You're not going to deny that ever.
She's like, did you wet the sleeping bag or what?
Why
Why
do
do
you
you smell like?
take a shower?
I honestly,
Touch me?
not to be gross, I did have to pee in my coffee cup that night because I was not going outside.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
when nature calls, yeah. But
No,
yeah,
that's. I mean, anyone that would have a Sasquatch stick their face into their tent and be, chomping their jaws and stuff is just.
their mouths are
terrifying.
huge. I'm not kidding you. He could probably fit my head in his mouth. I mean, that big. They're
Well,
huge.
one idea too for someone who's camping alone is, I mean, because we go hunting and stuff, but if you really don't want Sasquatch coming in, put a couple of game cameras
Yes, that keeps
facing
a
your
lot.
tent on a
Mhm.
couple trees facing your tent, and they won't get in front of the camera. Now you got to make sure you got enough battery power because they know
Mhm.
when the batteries die and they can move in.
Yeah.
And so
I've had them actually take the cameras and lay them face down
yeah,
too.
turn
And
them turn them around the other side of the
or they'll
tree.
smash them, or they'll
Yeah.
rub mud on them.
Have you had one break a camera?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I had one. They actually ground it into dust.
Yeah,
They did not want their picture taken. That was long. Yeah.
I had them steal a camera that I thought for sure was one of those little 1-inch cubes. And I thought for sure they're never going to see this. And it was sitting on a chair. We had a fire pit. We had 3 chairs, and then the tent was like, I don't know, 30 yards away. And the camera was pointing at the tent, but I thought I'm going to get them this time. In the morning, one chair was tipped over, that one, and the camera was gone. I was like, I looked
Oh,
all
God.
over.
Yeah.
It was not there. So they're really hard to
They are.
fool.
I think I've only gotten 5 photographs. I got a couple of them from one incident. I got glowing green eyes over the tent. And then that same night, I got 3 fingers. I didn't save those because I didn't want to write a book, but it was 3 fingers in front of the camera doing this. And then he laid the camera down on its face. And then I had one that slapped my neighbor in the face on accident, and I got a picture of his left ankle. That was at 5:30 in the morning too.
You got a picture of a left ankle
Left-
of a Sasquatch?
Yeah, left hairy ankle. Yes, at like 5:30 in the morning. That's all I've gotten in all these years.
I'm just looking at a couple of the questions here. Yeah, that's almost a surefire way to keep them out of your camp is putting up cameras. And I tell people that, and they're like, "Well, they don't know what a camera is." You can say what you want.
They know
but
what the intention is for sure.
they know what the intention is, and they will.
And they're not afraid of campfires either.
No,
They don't care about campfires at all. Countless times I've laid there and watched them walk right by the campfire as it's burning. So they don't care.
yeah, no, they're extremely smart.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to see any other good questions here. So, someone says, I've experienced with African wildlife and all types of reptiles. I have the nerve to stand there. Unfortunately, my wife does not.
I got to give Liz her credit. She's gotten pretty good at it. She actually half the time falls asleep when they're around. So
Well, isn't that weird how you'll have something like this happen and they're right outside your tent and they're messing around and then you just fall asleep. And it's like, how in the world can I have fallen asleep with all that going on? It's like they cast a spell over you or something. I don't know how to explain it, but you think you'd be lying there just, waiting for them to do something. And
I think
9
you
times
get
out of
used to
10,
it,
I wake up
You know?
later and I think, oh, I fell asleep,
yeah.
So
They're awesome.
Yeah, they are.
They're great.
Now, I sent Lou another. I really want to have him tell his story. I sent him another.
This can tell you.
Oh,
She
she gave. No. Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Let me just invite him again. Sorry about this, folks. But
We're gonna try to bring Lou in.
yeah, he gave me the wrong. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, just remember, if they're out there, they're not going to hurt you. They've had every opportunity to drag me off. I would be a missing person 1,000 times by now, and it's not.
Yeah, you and me both.
They're
So,
not. And actually, after a while, they get used to you, and it's quite pleasant once you get over your own fear. It's kind of self-generated for the most part.
okay, there we go.
It's so easy to talk to you with your Wookiee costume. Like it's like just hanging out. It's so cool.
Yeah, this is great. So I'm assuming Lou will. He gave me the wrong Gmail address. So hopefully he'll check in a second.
You want Liz?
Yeah, Liz, you've got a story. I'm gonna have you come sit where I am.
She can have my seat.
I'm gonna go check on why he's still going. So
Okay.
you come and tell your story. Okay,
Okay.
You do it however you need to.
Okay. You wanted to about her first undeniable one?
Yes.
Okay, got it. There you go, Bandito. Here she comes.
All right.
Hi, hon. This is my wife, Elizabeth. She's awesome. And she's camera shy.
So I guess that story starts with I was driving by myself. Jason was already at the location with 3 of our friends. And driving in there was just the creepiest feeling to begin with.
It's the same location I just told you
didn't
about.
have any expectations or anything, but driving in there by myself, it's so far off the grid. But just even driving, it's really, really rocky. So there's a lot of trees, but there's a lot of rockiness. So you have to really drive slow, and you just get this weird feeling as you're driving in, like something's watching you all the time. We get there, and the first evening we had, we took a daytime hike. So describing the terrain, we're at like the end of a fire road. There's a gate, and then you walk past that maybe 500 yards, and it's just weird drop off. To the side, there is a lake or a pond. It's not a huge lake, but it's a pond. And then to the left is a big drop off and a bunch of trees. There is absolutely no way for anybody else to have driven up there unless they were up there with us.
It's extremely remote.
It's very, very remote. So we all take a hike to the end and to the overlook and do a few, screams and whatnot, and decide to head back. It was starting to get to be close to sunset, so we decided to head back. And there was a couple in front of us, probably about 40 to 50 feet in front of us.
Well, we went down a dead end road.
Yeah.
Past the gate. So we were camped at the gate in the middle of the road. So, yep.
So we're walking back, and there was a couple in front of us, about 50 feet ahead of us. Jason was to my right, and our friend of his was on my left. I'm walking between you. I don't want to have any exposure, at least on the sides. I really would like to have somebody in front of me and behind me, so I was covered all the way around, but that didn't happen. We walked back, and all of a sudden,
5 steps.
Yeah.
Got about 5 steps.
We heard this noise. Jason can kind of demonstrate the noise. I can't do it very well.
It was extremely loud. It was almost like standing in front of a freight train. It was so loud. And it was about 10 or 15 feet to my right in the bushes, because there was a pond about 30 feet to my right through the trees. and it was standing right there, and it went, and it was so loud, it shook my entrails. You could feel it like
You
moving
can feel it
your
in
organs.
your chest, and I felt it more in
It
my
was
chest
powerful.
than I did hear it. The odd thing about it is that our friend standing next to me didn't hear anything. The couple in front of us didn't hear a thing. They didn't hear any movement in the trees. They didn't hear any noise at all. And it was so loud, and it basically like reverberated in your chest. I am 5'4" and 116 pounds. I am dragging Jason, and I'm dragging his friend Chad. I have them by the hand, and I'm pulling both
Trying to
of them.
run out of the woods. She was
Trying to
running.
get out of there. I had so much
Yeah.
momentum and so much adrenaline going that I was dragging them. Jason thought I was crushing his hand, and he thought I was going to break it.
I was trying to slow her down. I didn't want her to run because I knew he
I
would
wanted to run.
chase us.
I wanted to run.
I knew he would chase us if we didn't walk, so I was holding her back,
I wanted to get out of there. That was my thing. I wanted to get the heck out of there.
including when we got back to camp. She started packing up.
I started packing up, and Jason's like, "You're not leaving. You're not leaving. You need to stay. This is what we came for." And I'm like, "I came to camp. I didn't come for this."
Her hands were, that's the most terrified I've ever seen her. She was shaking her hands like this.
I've
couldn't
never
talk.
in my life had anything where I was visibly shaking, except for that experience. And it shook me. I was shaking for 2 hours. It was pretty rough because I knew then that I was stuck there for a couple of days, not being able to leave. But like you said, that's what we came for. So,
Yeah, he's kind of loud, huh?
but what really freaked me out was just the fact that, I felt it. It was nothing. The way it was communicating was as if something cupped its hands, directed the noise, and said, "What are you doing here?" In a very assertive voice, not trying to scare us, but trying to be authoritative. And that, you felt it inside.
You want to talk about when you got to camp?
Mom, hope you're not listening. I'm not a big drinker at all, but I did
She
drink
was that
a
night.
lot. That night. Honestly,
Very heavy.
I think I had a hangover for 2 days.
Yeah.
And of course, what do they want to do? Go on a hike? I don't want to go. Do you want to stay here by yourself? No. So my option was to go.
Which actually kind of worked out pretty good because, she is not a big drinker and she drank heavily in just a few minutes, really. And she was throwing up in the bushes because we were parked in the middle of the trees in the middle of the road. And she was throwing up in the bushes. And I was like, "Honey, this is not the place you want to go in the bushes by yourself."
I don't care.
And a little backstory, another from the same location, I almost urinated on one of the bushes that was hiding behind my truck. So you don't want to go just willy-nilly into the bushes. And so she went into the tent and she passed out in the bed, and we were sharing the tent with my buddy Chad. And I told him that I would wake him up if they came back because he still didn't believe and he didn't hear any of this stuff. And so she was asleep, and it was about 2 a.m, and I hear them talking in the trees behind us. There's 2 of them about 30 feet away, and they were making a plan. I could hear them for, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. Just no. And just back and forth and back and forth. So I'm trying to wake her up so she can hear it, and she's in a coma. She would not wake up.
Probably the best
Which
thing
is
for
probably the best thing at the time because she would have freaked out, honestly.
Yeah.
So I kind of let it go, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm trying to wake my buddy up, and I'm looking, and I hear him crawling up behind the tent. And then there was a lot of stuff that happened that night. So I hear him crawling through the grass, and it was a full moon night, which is rare. They don't usually do this on a full moon, but I see the thing stand up, and it was big. I don't know, 11, 12 feet tall. And it stands up, and it starts walking, and I woke my buddy up, and he stopped snoring, and the thing kind of froze, and I'm like pointing at it, and he's like, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're looking at." And it was so big, it looked like a giant pine tree, and I'm pointing at it. And finally, the thing started walking again. It goes, "Whoa!" And it starts walking. And my buddy's like, "Oh my God." And it walked all the way. It walked around, and it goes to play in the cooler, and the cooler had a squeak in the lid. And it was right by my buddy. It was just outside the tent, and it goes to lift up the lid. And the lid, and this thing's, I don't know, 6 feet wide. And it lifts up the the cooler, and the lid goes, and he goes, whoa, and it slams the lid down and goes running off into the woods and just like snapping off these trees, right? And so we both kind of got a start out of that. And then the next morning, so we go back to bed, and about 5 a.m, right next to our heads, right where me and Liz were sleeping, right outside the tent, we had one of those bumper hitches you put in your car for hauling your cooler and stuff. And we had that laying back there, and it had these big metal hooks for the ratchet straps, made out of rebar that were laying there. And this is what woke us up. It was like 5:15, 5:30 in the morning. The thing picked, and you had a hangover.
Ooh,
so it picked up this big old piece of rebar and looked at it, and he put it back where he found it, but he just kind of threw it down. And it was just like one of those dinner triangles, bang, 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 and it woke everybody up. Wow. And so that's pretty much the story. But after that, she's an old hand.
It was funny because after that happened, Jason's like, that's what that was. And I said, I don't know. He was sitting there. He was still having to try to convince me that's what it was. Because what else can pick up something like that with, with hands?
A bear's not going to pick up a steel piece of rebar and play with it and throw it back down. A raccoon can't do that. You're running out of options.
And he's like, something yelled at you last night. So
yeah. So there you go. And she's been with me ever since.
Yep. She hasn't given it up.
I'll go camping. That's pretty much what I do. I go for the camping part.
She does. She's out there,
freezes her butt off.
Yeah,
with all the rest of us.
Well, we got Lou with us, so let's bring
Lewis
Lou in. There he is.
Hello.
Welcome. This was
How are you?
Appreciate you coming in to join us.
Hey, no problem. Happy to be here.
Happy Halloween, bro.
Good to see you, man.
We're telling creepy Bigfoot stories, and whenever I think of that, I think of I think it was your first encounter, wasn't it?
It was my first encounter, which was the really scary one. The second one was a visual encounter, but it wasn't nearly as frightening. Yeah. So if you want me to just jump into the story here?
Jump in, tell the story.
All right. So just a little bit of my background. I grew up the son of a forest ranger. I have grown up in the Colorado outback. It is nothing. Yeah. Jason and I went to high school together. And then didn't see each other again for almost 25 years. Yeah. So, it's nothing for me. A 10-day solo archery hunt or backpack hunt into the wilderness is not a big deal for me. I am super, super comfortable in the outdoors. I do mostly ultralight solo, sleeping on the ground without a tent type camping. And I have had, hundreds and hundreds of nights in the Colorado wilderness without having any encounter with something that I couldn't explain, right? I've had close encounters with bears, moose. Moose is the only thing in the woods that's ever actually tried to kill me.
They'll do that.
They're mean. Mountain lions. I mean, I've seen and experienced a lot of things, and I'm very, very comfortable in the outdoors. Well, then I run into Jason after 20 years, and he says, guess what I'm into? Sasquatch. And I'm like, well, you'll never, that is fantastic. And I would describe myself as a hopeful skeptic. I'm an engineer and scientist by education. I'm very much prove it, show me. And Jason says, yeah, well, if you hang out with me for a summer, we'll see something. And I'm like, fantastic. So, here I'm thinking, what's the worst that can happen? I get to go camping with a guy that I just love to be around. It's going to be awesome. So I'm in. I'm totally in. And it didn't take very long.
2 days.
It did not take very long. I think this was our third time out. This was the first multiple day trip that we had out. now I'm afraid of the dark. It was a mind-blowing, reality-altering experience. And we were out with a large group. There were I don't know, let's call it 6 or 7 individual campsites in this place that is Jason's favorite. It's the hot spot, and I had gone up a day early.
This is up by Steamboat, that
yeah,
area.
Yep. And I had gone up a day early, so I had spent one night just sleeping on the ground, right? And doesn't matter to me. I'm there to go camping. Well, I think it was the second night. Everybody had been up very late. It was at this point probably 1 or 2 in the morning, and I was staying up really just to make sure that once everybody went to bed, right, that the fire was put out, right. I grew up the son of a forest ranger. If a fire was to break out on my watch, my father would shoot me. So I was going to make sure, I'll just make sure this fire is out. And so that meant I had to be the last one to go to bed. So here it is. We'll call it 2:00 in the morning. The final person has gone to bed, and almost everybody else is out there in campers or sleeping in vehicles. And I've just got my little, like 3-man tent set up kind of on the side. And,
already in bed.
Yeah, we were in a tent.
Yeah. So everybody else is in bed. I am the last man standing.
This is important for the story that you're the last one.
Yeah, this is important for the story, because I'm getting ready to go to bed, and I apologize. Some of this is graphic potty talk, but I had to go to. It's time for me to climb into my sleeping bag, and I've got to go to the bathroom. Not just a number one. I got to take a number 2, and everybody who's there has little outhouses, little porta potties set up behind their tents and behind their trucks and behind their campers. And at 2:00 in the morning, the last thing I wanted to go do is climb into one of those with all my buddies who are asleep, thinking that they could have encounters in the night. And so I'm like, I'm not going to go anywhere near their stuff. I'm going to go off on my own. Bad idea. I'm going to go off on my own, and I'm going to get this job done, and I'm going to get to bed. So I walk, I left a hanging light on in my tent. So my tent is illuminated somewhat. It's not bright. And I've got a headlamp on, and it's an older headlamp, and I've got it on the lowest possible setting. I didn't have it on the red setting, but I had it on the lowest possible setting. I didn't want to wake anybody up. I didn't want to disturb anybody. I didn't need much light for what I had to do. So I go over probably 20 yards from my tent, and there's a little cluster of trees. I have my little shovel. I dig myself a little hole, and I'm preparing to do my business. And I'm using, if you're familiar with going to the bathroom in the woods, I'm using the stripper pole technique, and this is important. Right? This is where you're holding on to the tree in front of you, and you've positioned your hole so you can squat down. So I'm squatted, and I'm doing my business, and I'm done. But then the timeline gets a little foggy, right? I'm done, and I hear in the darkness, almost directly in front of me, just a little bit off to my right, I hear this very, very deep whistle, it's a whistle, but it sounds like it's coming from something the size and the volume of a cow. It's huge. It is a deep, deep whistle.
And you're in about as vulnerable a position you can possibly be in.
Yep. Yep. And my 10 millimeter is in the tent.
Yeah.
I have nothing. I have nothing with me but a roll of toilet paper and my headlamp
And your stripper
And-
pole.
and my stripper pole. And when I say this was close, we're talking under 10 feet. Like whatever this was right there. Right there. So I have no memory of pulling up my pants, getting myself put back together. The next thing I really remember is I'm looking at the tent, which is 20 yards away, and it's lit up. I can see it. And this thing is, I know it's right there. And I actually reached up to the headlamp and I was going to go from low power to high power and look. But as I put my hand up, I started shaking so hard that I was like, nope, I can't look. I can't. I don't want to see.
See it. I don't want to see it. Yeah.
I don't want to see. We're okay. Like we're 6 to 10 feet apart. I don't know if this is a giant moose that's whistled at me or a bear. Whatever it is 1,000 pounds, right? It's huge. And I could not bring myself to actually turn on the high power and look. Whatever it was would have been completely illuminated. And so I've got this journey I've got to make of 20 yards to this tent. And as I start off, I actually said it out. I said it out loud. I said, "Oh, just please don't growl at me." And it wasn't a half a second after I get this response, and it was not a growl. It was more like a disgusted huff of somebody going, and it was loud and it was incredibly close. It's still that same 6 to 10 feet, the exact same spot, had not moved. And at that point, I'm having to resist the urge to run to the tent, right? It's like I am
to the great protection you'll have.
to the
inside
great
tent.
potential, of through my nylon tent. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
And so I put my head down and it's just like one step, 1 foot after the other. And I'm making sure I don't trip on anything. There's nothing, because I'm just like, I'm in the middle of an existential crisis. And I get about, and this is the weird part, and this is where I know I was in total panic mode. We got about, because I had said out loud, "Please don't growl at me." Well, I make it about 5 or 6 steps, and I got another audible sound that was a little bit more menacing. I still wouldn't call it a growl, but instead of a huff, disappointed huff, it had a little bit more urgency to it. And I turned there, standing in the middle of, I got nothing. I turned and I yelled into the darkness. I'm like, damn it, I'm not afraid to die. And I said, don't growl at me. And I literally turned back around, put my head back down, and now I'm mad marching to the tent. Just like fists clenched, eyes almost closed. I get back to the tent, right? Because all I want to do is wrap my fingers around the 10 millimeter, which is sitting in the tent. I close up the tent and I'm laying there, and it was a weird night. The wind was weird that night. There was a front coming in, so the wind would blow really hard for 2 minutes, and then it would be very, very still for 2 minutes, and then it would blow for 2 minutes, and then be very, very still. And I could not, like I said, I am now officially afraid of the dark. I could not turn off my lantern that was hanging, so I'm still in the light inside my tent. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, it gets to be one of those pauses in the wind, and I can hear footsteps. And where we are, that they're behind my tent, it kind of very slow rolling down into a creek that's probably 40 yards away. And what I can hear are footsteps coming up out of that drainage towards the tent. And the first 2 or 3 times I'm thinking, you're making this up. You don't actually hear this. But by the 4th or the 5th time, those footsteps were within feet of my head, just outside the tent. And I can remember just like cold sweat, back to my existential crisis, which I thought was over. And I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. I'm just laying on my back in the middle of the tent, my arms crossed over my chest, just holding on to this 10 millimeter. The wind blows again. And I don't think that he kicked my tent. I don't think that he grabbed my tent. I think that he stepped on one of the ropes holding the tent down. All of a sudden the whole tent goes gadunk, just one time. But I jumped, like I hit the top of the tent, right? I coming unglued, hit the top of the tent. And then that was it, right? Encounter over. I stayed up for another 40 minutes listening and listening and listening, trying to come up with something, and there was nothing. Well, I wake up the next morning, and I for sure am not going to be the first guy up now, right? It's like, no, I'm going to make sure this campsite is full of people before I get up. So I wait, and I know Jason, as soon as he wakes up, he's going to start cooking breakfast. So I just got to wait a little bit. So eventually Jason's out there cooking breakfast, and I unzip the tent and take a step out, and the look on my face must have told an amazing story, because Jason's 15, 20 yards away. And as soon as he sees me, he points at me and he goes, "What did you see?" He's like, dude, it was crazy. And to make a long story just a little bit shorter,
we found lots of footprints and handprints all over.
Yeah, Jason ended up casting multiple footprints and a really wild little handprint, all from kind of back behind my tent, between my tent and the creek. And yeah, it was amazing. And so now there's been a couple times, right? So now I'm in the Squatching world now. I mean, I didn't really intend to be here. Ta-da!
Crazy.
Yeah. And so now I try to support Jim. I try to support Jason. And I've been to a couple of Jason's book signings and stuff. And I always wear this. I wear this badge that says, "I hate Jason Frank. Ask me why." There's
you and a lot of other people.
I have that.
Yeah.
Feeling too, so yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. So there you go. There's
awesome.
my story.
There was much more after that too. That was just one night. We had multiple nights and even daytime activity on that.
Yep.
Well, and then also the fact that the next day, was it the same trip the next day that you went into town and looked at
it was 2 days, because you left, and then it was 2 days, I think, after that. Yeah. When we had to go get refueled, and that was all during the COVID lockdown.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And we had stuff right in the middle of the day, and like we were mentally, it just messed with your head. And I even left my dog at camp, which I don't do that.
Our dogs go everywhere with us, and they
my
don't
baby.
leave camp.
I was mentally shot for days. I mean, just exhausted completely.
No doubt. But that's, I just have this picture in my head of you out there doing your duty. And I know I never go out in the middle of the night, for one. If I can any way avoid it, if you have to go, you have to go. I get it. But you're out there, you're totally vulnerable. Did you wonder when you finally stood up and started walking back, were you expecting something to reach out and grab you from behind, or?
Yeah. I thought I was done. I thought I
Yeah.
was just going to get snatched right there, and yeah,
Yeah.
I thought I was done.
It's not the being snatched; it's the possibility of being snatched, and it's right there. That's probably worse than actually being grabbed. I don't know, but
Well, the bottom line is something that size has a strength to make this struggle. Even with me, I'm 6'1", 250 pounds. That fight's over pretty fast,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's the idea of it that's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and yet
They still didn't hurt you.
they didn't hurt you, and it seems like we have this agreement that we stay in our tent and they stay outside the tent. They don't come in, they don't squash us, they don't.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but like you, it's like I just got to get in my tent and I'll be safe. And I'm thinking,
I felt like there was this kind of unwritten contract that I had breached, right? I was not, by being out, and I basically violated almost the only rule Jason said when going squatching with him, besides you can't hurt him, right? We're not hunting Sasquatch. We're not even, but about the only rule Jason gave me is, be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And I violated that rule.
You were out too late.
Yep.
And
I've broken that rule too. It never ends well.
No.
I don't break it. Nope. And if I break it, then Jason's going with me.
Well, I'm always in bed early because I'm tired anyway. But there's people that will sit up by the fire thinking they're going to come right into camp and I'm going to see them. It's like it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way.
Nope.
Unless you're going to take a dump, and then you don't want to see them. Because
well, this is the rolling joke now with all the guys in the group, is every time I've got to go to the bathroom, it's like, all right, make sure Lou's accounted for. Doesn't go off and do something stupid again.
Make sure Lou's still around.
Mm-hmm.
I've called out to you in the night before you go to bed. Lou, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm good.
Yeah, the nylon force field. That's what it is.
I don't know why you expect it's going to save you, but yeah.
I'm just glad you joined us, man.
Yeah. No, it was great. Incredible story.
Yep. And there's many more.
Well, I think I've got one more that I've got on a short video. So this is, and I appreciate you coming back from work and joining us.
Problem.
It was really awesome.
No problem. Thanks for having me. You guys have a great evening.
See you, man. Thanks for coming on short notice. So this was the first time Jason and I went out to Goose Creek, and it was just the first night was the two of us. Mm-hmm. The second night, Liz joined us. The third night, Lou came, and there were other things that happened after that. But I'm going to talk about the first night that Jason and I were there. So did you have both dogs that time?
Yep.
I think you did.
Yep, had them both.
So
and it's freezing cold.
It was freezing cold. It was early April, 2021, I think. And so, or 20 maybe.
20, I think.
And so we had backpacked in. We'd set up our tents. We were. I was in a little. I'll show you in the video. You'll see the tent. And I'm not going to give it away. I'm just going to show this video, and then we'll talk about it in a second. But it's the video on the right there, Tammy, that says Goose Creek incident. So we're up. It's got the fire going. It's about 7:30, 7:45. And we both heard something. Here's our campsite. We both heard something cross the creek. Bipedal. Harley over there was growling. And don't know what it was. I got my thermal out, but it didn't look outside the tent. It didn't want to see beyond the tent walls. So
they definitely were here this morning or last night. They ran across there. Without a doubt, I know that's what I heard.
Yeah, me
and
too.
They also threw a rock in the creek.
Did you hear that? Hey, that's my apple. What you doing? Didn't realize we were muted.
So that dark spot is actually yet pushing on the chin.
Yeah, it was pushing from the outside. Yeah, this was 3 a.m.
Middle of nowhere.
Middle of nowhere. For someone to come in and
Walk across a creek.
Freaking cold. And then mess with either of our tents. We were both armed, so it would have just been a foolish thing to do. And we both heard bipedal walking across the creek.
And a big rock thrown in there. That rock was huge.
Yeah. And so I'm filming from the inside of my tent, this thermal, and then whatever it is was outside pushing like this, just pushing on the tent, going back and forth. And it did it for several minutes. And it was only the next day. I didn't notice, for some reason, I didn't notice that night. I get up next morning, I'm showing Jason the video, and he goes, dude, there's something outside your tent that was pushing. And Harley was growling the whole time.
Yeah,
and
he
you
was.
said he was looking
He
at my tent.
Yep. Both of them were.
The other weird thing that night was that I had hung some battery operated like fairy lights in a tree, maybe 20 feet outside my tent. And they've been on all night, and I would wake up and I'd see the lights. I go back to sleep. At 3 a.m., this thing walks across the creek, and then the lights turned off. And I was like, that's weird. Those lights, you have to push a button to turn them off. And they went off, and then the growling started and everything else happened. But it probably was a good thing that I didn't know that it was pushing. It was right above my feet. And I'm in a tent that's maybe 4 feet tall, and it was pushing right above my feet. You could see my feet at one point.
Which is actually right against the river where the drop-off is from the embankment.
So don't know if it was a juvenile or a big one bending down, whatever, but
they came back the next night too. That's when Lou had his visual.
Lou had his visual. They left tracks.
Now we got footprints and handprints, and
so we've had tons of events and tons of encounters, and I'm just looking at my time here. So
love camping with Jim. We have really good times, and we get some good stuff.
We do.
Yep.
And now that I'm camping with Wayne as well. Wayne's gonna actually come hunting with me next week for a few days, and we're hoping that we may get some action at night. We'll see what happens. We'll be in his pop-up. So
Fortress.
In a fortress. It actually has sides on it. And it's not just a tent. So let's see. Do we still have
some more questions?
Some more gifts to give away?
Two more questions. So I guess we had something with
So here's a question. And John said he's going to give his second gift to how many colors of M&Ms are there in a normal bag? How many colors? They've added some colors, but a normal bag of M&Ms, who can guess how many colors? 1 through something. Let's see if anybody guesses it. I did not know this answer, but 5 is not correct. Keep guessing. 6.
There you go.
So Southern Colorado Squatcher, you win.
You get the tool.
You get the tool, the multi-tool. 6 colors.
There you
Makes
go.
me hungry thinking about M&Ms right now. I should go trick-or-treating.
All right, so we got 2 more. What were originally used as the first jack-o'-lanterns?
We did that one. Turnips.
Okay, so we got this. So we got one left.
Okay.
What was the least known fact about the Patterson Gimlet film about Patty's characteristics?
Okay. Something that not many people know about Patty from that film. Anybody know this detail? Let's see if anyone gets it right. Something that I only heard a couple of years ago about her.
And it's after they were able to refine the video.
Yeah. After they did her braid. Yes.
Yay,
Patricia.
way to go.
So
good job.
We believe that she had her hair tied up and maybe braided down her back. And so, what does she get? She gets.
We're going another multi-tool.
We have another multi-tool.
Yeah, and we got a keychain. I don't know what you want to do with that one.
Let's see.
More.
So we had two multi-tools.
No, yeah, 2 multi-tools. This is the last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have this little Sasquatch keychain. Let me think what question we can ask. Do either of you have a question that you think we can ask?
Where'd you get that costume?
Where did you get
Oh,
that
I got a
costume?
question
Okay.
for you. What is a name for Sasquatch that is also a very famous soft drink? Oh, how about that?
A famous soft drink?
Yes.
Jason always full of useful information.
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh, what do we have here?
You'll have to see if they got the right answer because that.
Oh, you got it.
What is
Actually, Yahoo, but Yoo-hoo. That's close.
Yoo-hoo? Okay.
Yeah,
Now, how
that's
did you guys know
Yahoo.
that? I never.
Yeah.
Yahoo. They called him a Yahoo.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, so Yoo-hoo. Who got the Yoo-hoo?
The drink is
The
Yeah,
drink is Yoo-hoo.
Yeah, yep, that's right. There you go. Good job.
It's good that the drink is not called Wood Booger.
I know. That one didn't sell very well.
No, it did not. It did not.
It was a sinus rinse.
Well, this has been awesome. I appreciate you guys
Happy Halloween,
tuning
everybody.
in. Happy Halloween. If you're still got little kids, you're probably already home, or maybe you haven't gone out yet. But be safe out there on the streets. And
Thanks, Lewis.
yes, and until
Thanks,
next
Mr.
time.
Sasquatch.
And next week, I believe I've got Doug Hychek on the show, and we're going to talk about some things he's had happen recently when he's been up at his remote cabin in Canada. And let me just do this real quick. I'm going to swap cameras here. And if I can do this, where's my video?
Is it on the camera up above?
No, here it is. Swap to this camera. And
There we go.
You
There's
guys
our-
have
there's
just
our
got to see
audience.
our Sasquatch.
May the force be
Tell
with
us your name so everybody knows.
sassy.
Sassy and
I
Wayne.
like that.
So Sassy, we really appreciate you coming and being with us tonight
Yeah,
and
thank
wearing
you.
the outfit. And I am going to give you a t-shirt to thank you for coming and being with
Right
us
on.
tonight. So we appreciate you coming with an awesome. Where did you get your outfit? You said Amazon.
Ah,
I've
all
never
the way
seen that
down
one
there?
on Amazon.
I didn't know they had them in Amazon.
I've only seen the lame-o,
Yeah, that's one of the better-
lame-o Jack Lynx
Yeah,
ones.
I was
But
thinking the Amazon would get really hot.
it's hot. I'll bet. I'll bet.
Hey,
Well,
happy Halloween, everybody.
thank you, Jason and Liz, for coming,
bro.
and we'll have more adventures to come. And until next week, keep on squatching.